welcome to Denbigh Mental, and we're now inside the grounds of the Mental, so we're very honoured. And as you can see, there's a lot of demolition work going on here. It's quite dangerous, so nobody should be here who shouldn't be here. Fascinating place. And we've got Peter Glynn, who worked here, so I don't know if you'd like to say a few words there, Peter. You'd come in on the camera.
Well, thank you, Paul. Yes, I did work here. I worked here from 1974 until it closed in about 94. Behind us is what was the main hall. It is obviously a closed site, dangerous site, as Paul says. No one's allowed in here. We are here with permission only. It's a bit heartbreaking, really, having worked here all this time. But myself and Paul, do you think we could have a spin around the place?
Yeah, we'll have a look around and show you a few of the features of the place. So let's do that then, yeah?
Okay. What we've got here is the tennis courts, as was, hard courts. Okay, what we have there is an old ward, Bryn Hyfryd, which was the first ward to be demolished. As soon as the hospital shut, it was demolished, and just beyond it is the football pitch. So we'll have a look at that.
Industrial therapy unit.
Well, okay, what we've got here is the wards. We're on the female side. There was a male side and a female side, and never the twain should meet, but eventually they did. That's the 8 block, number 8, which gives you a clue on how many blocks there were. 8A, 8B, 8C, and then here was the 7 block, 7A and 7B. Eventually, as the wards closed and the patients moved out of the community, the wards were used for other things, and as Paul has rightly identified there, industrial therapy, which was like doing nuts and bolts for eager tube, things like that. What do you think that is, Paul?
Well, first look, it looks like an underground car park. It's some sort of, is it a classroom of some sort? Or?
Good guess, very good guess. You're quite right when you say car park. Cars, though scarce in my day, 1 or 2 would park under there. But on top, the building itself is actually the staff canteen.
Oh, right.
The staff canteen where people would have breakfast, dinner, tea, supper, evening meal. It was open, in my day, it was open, the canteen was open all day, obviously, and at night till about 3 o'clock for night staff, because there was a huge night staff community here. Eventually it closed. The kitchen itself was run down, and people had to sort their own meals out, bring their own butties or whatever, especially night duty. It was a bit tough, and eventually they opened a patient's library as a sort of canteen for staff, as it was really coming to the end of its life.
So what would that be, Peter?
Okay, what we've got there is the workshops, small workshops, electricians, plumbers, plasterers. It was a community, so everything, it was self-contained, everything was done from within. So it's not just nurses who lost their jobs and doctors, it was auxiliary staff also. Okay, what we've got here is the morgue.
The morgue?
The morgue.
Right. Nothing there at the minute.
I think we should move hurriedly on.
We've just come here now, and there's an impressive building behind me, so I'm just wondering what that is. Peter, do you know what that is?
Yes, I do. I should know. It's the nurses' home, Paul.
Right, okay.
And I was a resident there for 7 years.
Right.
From the age of 16 until I got married.
Excellent. What was it like to live there?
Well, that's an interesting question. You asked me a different sort of question earlier about goings on there, you called it.
Yeah.
What's it like to live there? Well, I could tell you a story that would last the whole of the film, but all I'll say is that we had a warden there who looked after us very well. It was mixed. There was girls and boys, qualified student nurses, cadet nurses like myself. But it was a wonderful place to live, a wonderful experience. I learnt more in the nurses' home than I ever did on the wards. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, that's it. Experience, people living there with you. Yeah.
Indeed,
Yeah,
yes, and all sorts of experiences to be had in the nurses' home, and really pleased about that.
Yeah. Another film there on the ongoings in the nurses' home there. So that'll be another film, Peter.
It could be a carry-on film.
Carry on. Well, thanks for that.
Okay. Now the nurses' home which we saw earlier, this is a better close-up of it, and you can actually see my room. That is where the snooker table was, and the middle window was my room when I qualified, a staff nurse's room, a bigger room than the cell they gave when we were student nurses.
Okay, we're here outside the chapel of the Denbigh Mental, and as you can see, it's a beautiful building still.
Beautiful.
And it's got a nice little spire and, you know,
Nice
beautiful.
spire.
Yeah, lovely that, yeah. So what would this have been used for, Peter, in general?
Well, as it's a multi-nominational chapel, what that meant was that any patient who was in the hospital of whatever religion was able to go to the chapel and pray and take service there, and to be administered to. It was serviced from the town, so you know, the Catholics, the Methodists, the chapel goers themselves, you know, they'd all have the ability to go and use the chapel.
Right, yeah, okay then. Just one more thing, I think, and a few people may think the same. What about most haunted?
Righty-ho, well, yes, good question indeed, that, Paul. It was used in the Most Haunted production in November, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Somebody was locked in the chapel and experienced psychic phenomena in there.
Right.
If you're asking whether I believe that, well, to each his own, for a start.
Yeah.
If you're asking, you know, should they have gone to the chapel, or if indeed there was any psychic stuff in there, I have a tendency not to go along with that. I tend to think that that was just theatre, drama.
Right.
I have no problem with it. It's decommissioned now, and it's not a holy ground in any shape or form.
No.
But quite a decent night's entertainment anyway, I thought.
Yeah, that's it. They did it for Denbigh.
They did it for Denbigh. We need more entertainment here in Denbigh. That was one.
Yeah, there we are. Well, thank you very much for that.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, Peter's just brought me to another part of the back of the hospital, and I've no idea where we are. So would you like to explain where we are, Peter?
Okay, well, we're actually on the hospital perimeter. Now, obviously, it's a closed site. Nobody's allowed into the site at the moment. It's under private ownership. But what I can tell you is that behind us, where we would be, is an old ward called Denbigh Ward. It was an actual villa that was built in the 1930s. A listed building it was. It's no longer with us, I'm afraid. It was demolished. A huge, impressive building. A path would run from it, from where we stand now, over yonder to another ward, the Gwynfryn ward. In fact, a number of wards over there, Gwynfryn and Talavan.
Excellent.
That's where we are now.
Excellent, thank you very much. So we'll have another wander around there.
Okay.
Thanks for that.